Welcome to the 1 o'clock Ask the PharmaVOICE 100 Roundtable. I'm Taryn Grome, co-founder and editor-in-chief of PharmaVOICE, and we're delighted to spend a few minutes with you this afternoon. We're halfway through our day, and it has been simply amazing. If you have missed any of our previous sessions, they will be available on demand by Monday, and we want to sincerely thank you for spending your valuable time with us today. And a sincere thank you to our sponsors who made this day possible. Before we jump into our next Ask the PharmaVOICE 100 roundtable, we'd like to share a short video showcasing some of our 2021 PharmaVOICE 100 honorees and how they are igniting change, blazing new trails, and sparking innovation. Let's hear from them.
I'm sparking innovation by creating an inclusive environment where everyone feels heard and they feel safe enough to submit their most creative thinking.
The question, how are you sparking innovation? If you have anticipated a need, be bold, take calculated risks, and through perseverance, I believe you can innovate and become an enabler to digitize the life sciences industry. Thank you.
I'm igniting change by constantly pushing upwards the artificial ceiling to create more room for others to blossom.
At Heartbeat, we ignite change through authentic, risky, sometimes painfully honest dialogue. We believe that igniting change comes from having the conversation no one else wants to have.
I am igniting change by innovating and transforming.
I'm igniting change through inspiring people to be the best version of themselves, reminding our industry of how important it is to have regulatory affairs at the development table for new therapies, as well as elevating the need for equity in healthcare.
I am blazing new trails, building a firm in which meritocracy is the core structure, and women have ended up being majority of the owners and leaders in the firm, while also providing uniquely remarkable results in breakthrough, innovation, and transformation to support and drive incredible health outcomes for patients.
I'm blazing new trails with a human-first approach to leadership. That means understanding our people, where they are, what they're feeling, what they want, and then taking the actions to make sure that we're there to support them.
I am igniting change by challenging the status quo. Just because things have always been done one way, it doesn't make it right. This award validates our efforts to offer women healthy choices that positively impact their quality of life. Thank you.
Every day, I work to blaze new trails to ensure the future of science is more diverse, inclusive, and equitable.
I'm igniting change one discussion at a time, and I pledge to continue to speak to young women, talented women, and help them understand all of their competency and opportunity. And if they could build the confidence in themselves, they will better value their self-worth.
So blaze, spark, and ignite. Wow. So here we go. It's my pleasure to welcome Sheeta Bina, founding partner at Insignium, a 2021 and 2016 PharmaVOICE 100, who, as you heard, is blazing new trails to gender parity and equity in leadership in healthcare. Liz Kay, founder, Quarter Moon Communications, a 2021 PharmaVOICE 100 honoree. In addition, she is also blazing new trails by embracing new initiatives that before were considered unimaginable. A 2020 PharmaVOICE 100, Eli Phillips Jr., VP Insights and Engagement and Regulatory Sciences at Cardinal Health, is igniting change by eliminating silos. And Dr. Mary Pittman, President and CEO, Public Health Institute, a 2020 PharmaVOICE 100, she is sparking change by advancing public health. Welcome, everyone.
Hi there.
Thank you, Taryn.
All of you have been involved in leading large teams and or mentoring initiatives. So while we wait for the questions to come in from our audience, I'd like to ask you, what are your keys to successful mentorship? Sheeta, let's kick off with you.
All right, Taryn. Hi, everybody. We had a little bit of a primer that we were going to get that question to start off with. And interesting enough, I found myself reflecting on two sides of that coin when I was mentored in my career and my own experiences mentoring people. And I know that when I was mentored, I remember being 22 years old, right out of college in an environment where there weren't a lot of men, a lot of women, there were a lot of men, and really hitting a tough spot somewhere in the early part of my career. And this other woman who I later learned kept an eye on me. We didn't know about mentoring in those days. I remember she said to me, listen, you are headed for the moon. Don't let these little things stop you. And I can't tell you how many times I called upon that as I moved forward in my career. So I think number one, successful mentoring is about having a bigger vision for the person that they can hold on to and use to propel themselves forward. As a mentor, I find that what's really challenging, but also very critical, is that I stay on top of this, that it doesn't drift into the background, that I have it scheduled in my calendar to take action, that I regularly check in with the people I'm mentoring. This past weekend, we had some difficult, a couple of weekends ago, weather conditions here, checking in even in those instances, early career people who I know have more difficulty, maybe less resources, to make sure that they're okay. So I would say having a bigger vision for the person you're mentoring that they can use to fuel themselves forward, and staying consistently on top of it as a mentor.
That purposeful action speaks volumes, right? To your
consistently
purposeful action. Absolutely. And I liked your initial thought too. Don't let the little things stop you, because other obstacles will eventually pop up. It's your ability to navigate around those and figure out a way forward. Excellent insights, Sheeta. Liz, I'm going to turn to you now.
Okay.
You had mentioned that you are all about mentoring that next generation. So talk to me about why this is a passion for you.
Well, I love to do this, and I've been mentoring and guiding folks for so many years, since really over the last sort of 25, 30 years. And I just, what I've sort of found, and I think it's changed over time, but what I find is it's really important to give people a space to be heard and to stop talking at them, and to give everybody a place to just speak and to listen and acknowledge wherever they may be, in whether it be in personal or professional needs, that I'm hearing those things and sort of accepting of wherever they may be, and meet them where they are. And I also think it's really important. I think people have gotten really aware that I will give really honest, bold feedback. Sometimes it's great and sometimes it's bumpy, but tell them the way it is. And also to share personal experiences that can also resonate for them, so they realize that they're not alone. And the third thing is actually something that Sheeta said as well. I really appreciate being accountable to those that I'm mentoring, right? I like to keep it on my calendar. I want to check back in. I want to make sure that they realize that this is important and serious, and that I take it seriously. And I want to make sure that they're loved and respected along the way, however it goes.
That's excellent. I love that 360-degree approach to seeing where that person is, wherever they might be in their personal and career journey is so important, because nobody's one dimension. So they have many conflicting priorities as well as pressures on themselves. And that honest feedback, and I can tell you, I've known Liz a long time, and I've been a recipient of that honest feedback, and it's been most appreciated. So thank you, Liz. I appreciate that. And that accountability, as Sheeta said, so important. Eli, I'm going to turn to you as our sole male on this panel. Tell us about your mentoring experience.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Taryn, and good day, everyone. So happy to be here today. Listen, I think that a good mentor makes all the difference in a career and the development of an individual. And no matter where you are in your career, it's important that not only you're mentoring others, but that you're a mentee, ensuring that you have a mentor as well that you can go to, that you can rely on. And it doesn't matter if you're brand new to your career or if you're a 40-year veteran in the industry, there still should be folks that you are able to tap into to help with whatever struggles you're facing. what that leads me to is really the qualities of a strong mentor that I view is someone that understands your role changes based on the situation.
Sure.
Sometimes the mentee needs a coach. Sometimes they need a little bit of parenting. Sometimes it could be a player, and sometimes it could be a referee. And if you're able to pivot along those lines and help folks really understand the gravity of the situation, understand whether it's developmental aspects you're trying to help them with, or a specific situation they're encountering on the job, I think both are very well primed for strong mentorship. Additionally, what I would say is it's important that you perhaps have a mentor outside of your industry also. I always found value in seeking that outside perspective from someone that maybe is not so close to the same issues that you're facing. You'd be amazed at how many parallels there are to other industries. So for example, I have a mentor that's a pilot, has nothing to do with healthcare, but you'd be amazed to see how many crossover opportunities there are and what we can learn from these other industries. So definitely view a few opportunities there and much development opportunities for mentorship.
I love that, Eli. So it's a two-way street. So you have to be a mentor and a mentee at the same time. And it gives you those different perspectives. And I can see how having a mentor who's a pilot can be beneficial, because they're often looking at that ceiling in the sky, right? And if they get turned upside down, they have to figure out how to get right side back. So, yes. And also about developing that personal board of directors. I think that's what you were alluding to in terms of gathering those mentors around you at different stages of your career. Excellent insights. Thank you so much. Mary, I'm going to turn to you now.
Okay.
How is it that you approach mentoring?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to join, and I am in total agreement with the great points that my three panelists have already raised. When I was thinking about this, I said, my successful mentorships and when I have mentored people have been when we've sat down and really done an assessment of what we each want out of the mentoring relationship, and trying to set some goals from the start. Certainly, as you go along in a mentoring relationship, there's no one size that fits all or one approach that fits, and you have to be flexible to be able to adapt. And sometimes the goals change. Things happen in people's professional and personal lives. So I think having a sense of what you want to accomplish in the mentoring relationship is important. Creating a safe space for the person, because often the mentoring relationship is where they can test out new ideas that are not yet ready for prime time, and you can help shape and coach them to develop those so that they can be taken forward into the workplace. But people don't like to test something out without it being perfect. And so that mentoring relationship has to be that safe place. And then I think, as other people have said, stay in it for the long haul, and also recognize that mentoring isn't for any single point in your career. The mentoring needs change over time in the career, but not the need for mentoring. I asked to have put in the chat for people, it's a PowerPoint for a program that we launched at my organization, the Public Health Institute, in honor of one of my mentors, Carol Emmett. And this is a program that was set up to help women leaders excel in their career to reach whatever the highest level that they were aspiring to. And often with a mentoring relationship, people found that they weren't shooting to the highest level that they could potentially work at. And so we found that mentoring was really extraordinarily valuable in that fellowship program, and that it was part of that secret sauce that allowed these women leaders to have confidence and also to identify where their weaknesses were that maybe was holding them back. So overall, it's mentoring is so beneficial on both sides. I've gained so much from my mentees, many of whom have been very different from me and from different fields. So I agree with Eli that crossing into other fields is also beneficial.
Mary, that's great. Thank you so much. And all those points are awesome. And I want to go back to that safe space, because you're right. That's this place where you can go try out new ideas before you make them ready for prime time, right? You want to have a off-Broadway preview before you bring it to the big boss. So awesome consideration there. I would be remiss after you just brought up one of the programs that you were talking about, the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association, and we have the global chair sitting here with us today, Sheeta, and Liz Kay sat on the global board of directors for the HBA for many years, as did I. Eli, I know Cardinal has been a corporate partner there, and I know Mary, you sit on the advisory board. So we can talk a little bit about how the HBA also brings in that secret sauce to mentoring, and that's a wonderful organization in which to get involved with mentoring. So Sheeta, you want to talk a little bit about what what you're seeing through the HBA, and then we have a question coming in too that I'd like to address. Sheeta, you're on mute.
I was following instructions to mute when I'm not. I think that I can assert, so I can provide evidence that the HBA provides a vast ecosystem of mentoree and mentoring and mentorship, every kind of facet of mentoring. I know that women in my own organization have been mentored and mentored other people, peers. It's one big community of people who are committed to being Sherpas for other people and other women. And there's the many men who are very active. The HBA is in the process of reconstituting our strategies and our visions and demanding of ourselves to be bolder and to really take on gender parity and equality in healthcare leadership to the point in which we're making a difference in health equity and health outcomes. And that, I think, given the imperative that health equity is for the future of our society, we're also building and developing leaders who are going to take us into the next era, and hopefully take us very successfully into that era. We've discovered, we're not the only ones, that when you have leadership in organizations that reflect the populations you serve, you come out with better outcomes and better strategies. So I think there is every aspect of mentoring available in the HBA.
Excellent. So let's talk about when somebody asked the question, when you're mid-career and you're a little bit more seasoned, how do you go out and find a new mentor? What advice do you have for folks who are in that mid-career space, and where should they look if they're not tapping into pilots? Eli, I'll kick off with you.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Happy to do so. Listen, I think that we've already addressed some organizational aspects, but stay involved. The term you always hear is networking, right? But that's hard, and it's gotten even harder in these virtual times. So what does that look like when we don't have these in-person opportunities to come together and connect? And what I would say is take a look at your professional organizations, whether you are a member of groups. I think PharmaVOICE is fantastic. Look at the connections that you'll make throughout this organization as well. And don't be afraid to reach out and take that first step. It could be as simple as, hey, let's get together for a meet and greet on a virtual coffee. And, I've done that before and more than happy to do that. And what I would say is, don't get too tied up in the formality of a mentorship relationship. What we're really talking about here is a relationship. Developing someone that you could rely on as a confidant, someone that you could confide in and speak with. And it doesn't have to be a fully formed out mentorship program per se. They do exist with some organizations, but really you could do this as casually or as intensively as you choose. As long as the mentor is on board as well. So you have to make sure that your background's fit and that it makes sense for both parties. But again, I'd say don't be afraid to reach out and even through interactions that you've had throughout networking and similar. And even if that person maybe doesn't have the gumption or maybe not the wherewithal, perhaps they know someone in their network that they can link you with also. So don't be afraid to use that more expanded network as well.
Well, first of all, thank you for the shout out, and the check is in the mail. But in terms of the network part of it, it's right. It's not the business card exchange. It is about developing those meaningful relationships. And going back to your point earlier about developing that personal board of directors for yourself, everybody needs a posse, right? So where do we go to find those individuals, though, that maybe aren't in your organization? Liz, any advice that you can provide that you've shared with some of your mentees?
Yes, and I agree with Eli. It's sort of going sort of beyond yourself. And I also think it's being intentional. You just have to ask. One of the things that HBA does that I always sort of said was that you sort of leave your strategies at the door. Like we've all got competing business strategies, but there are so many other things that connect us together. And that sort of opens the door to sort of reach out to others and say, I'm interested, I'm curious. I'd like to learn more about who you are and what you're doing. And here's where I'm interested and curious to learn more for myself, for my own advancement. And I think, I mean, Stacy put that question out there about mid-career. I don't think it, mentoring starts at just one phase. I think it continues all the way along. And some of the nearest, dearest relationships and mentoring relationships that I have now are with seasoned professionals moving into our fourth decade of work and what that transition looks like and feels like. And so there are plenty of us that are willing to sort of step forward and help others at all stages.
Yeah, Sheeta.
Just to build on Liz and Eli, sometimes mentoring does not have to be an exchange. Let me give you something.
That's true.
I find that if I walk into any environment and I walk in with the eyes of what can I learn from this person, just being on this panel, I've already been mentored. Wow, Mary actually prepared something ahead to share. That's really interesting. And, the way Taryn rephrases what people say, you can really turn the world into your university if you walk in with that kind of a mind. I'm clear that there is a need for a mentor who at times even operates like an ally or a sponsor. And is actively engaged. But I think I would get terribly bored if I wasn't always seeking to find gaps that I then work to close. And if you read Angela Duckworth's Grit, she talks about that, about people who achieve great excellence are constantly engaged in deliberate practice with a little minute thing. God, look at the way she rephrased what people said. Look at, the way Mary is so well centered in the middle of her, her whatever that little thing is. So, there's infinite opportunities to learn.
I love that. The world can be your university. I'm going to the Sheeta School, but I'm going to turn to you, Mary, now.
Sure. This is a great conversation, and I agree that we learn if we're open to it in whatever setting. And I think sometimes mentoring is a little scary. You think, oh, how do I go out and find a mentor? But informational interviews is an old-fashioned term, which is basically asking someone if you can learn about their career, about them as people. And there are a lot of ways. I mean, you can, after you've been on a program like this, I always write down names of people that I'm then going to look up on social media and follow up and just talk to them. And some folks, it's a one-time exchange, and with others, it develops into a personal or a professional relationship. But it's that proactive, looking for people that are of interest to you. And then, it's a two-way street. You have to offer something to that relationship. But I find that on social media, and I'm listening to podcasts and all sorts of things where I find people that I might never have come in contact with other than, through a digital tool.
Absolutely. And in this virtual world, I think we need to rely on those sources ever more. I think that one of the hallmarks of great leadership, and you all have expressed it, is that willingness to learn and being open to new experiences and being ever curious. So what's next? What else can there be? And how can I pay it forward as well? I think those are so important. And you all have exhibited that throughout your careers, which is some of the reasons you've been named as PharmaVOICE 100s. So my question to you and I am inspired by each and every one of you, who inspires you? So I'm going to go quickly around. We have about 3 minutes left. I'm going to start with you, Sheeta, and then I'm going to go around the horn. Sheeta, you're on mute again.
Recently, who inspires me are the people the men and women, particularly the women, but I think it's men and women, who have little children, young children, and have had to deal with this pandemic and dealing with working in the pandemic. I literally thanked God every day that my children were grown when this pandemic hit, because I don't know having a dog was challenging, right? And working from home, let alone kids and other responsibilities and homeschooling. And I am in awe I'm just in awe of the men and women who have tackled that the past, whatever month, it's almost 2 years. It's a little short of 2 years. And it really gives me oomph. Inspire is to breathe life into. And it really breathes life into me, knowing that if they can do whatever they're doing, I can do with this little thing I have to deal with.
It puts it all in perspective, doesn't it? Absolutely. And Liz?
I have two of them, and I couldn't separate the two. But the first is just my everyday friends and colleagues, sort of similar to you, Sheeta. I am, everybody is dealing with more sickness, more illness, at sort of where I am in their stage. And, just having the opportunity to sort of talk through and untangle some of the things that everybody is going through, my friends are going through, and sort of honoring that inspires me to be better. I will tell you that on Monday night's Rosh Hashanah service, the Rabbi Sarah Mack in Providence, said what the pandemic has taught her is that there are the numbers of ways that people support and care for each other. And it just felt so poignant right about now. And I sort of looked at the service and I thought about the past year in a different way than I had heard in the past. And then the other thing for me is that in the past year, I've spent a lot of time, a couple of years, in rare diseases. And the opportunity to speak to moms and parents and siblings in the rare community has just humbles me and inspires me every day.
I couldn't agree with you more on both of those points. And you're right. As much divisiveness we hear out there every day, to have those opportunities to hear about caring and being open and being warm is so refreshing. And you wouldn't think we'd be there, but here we are 24 months in almost. And it's those bright lights that get us through the days. Eli?
Yeah, over these last 18 months, listen, there's been inspirational stories all over the place. And it's just fascinating to see how people step up during these challenging times. What I've always been fascinated by is the art of the possible. So I'm inspired by those folks that are able to see a connection that other folks might not see. I'm sort of a science junkie also. So I love the astrophysicists, Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson. If you guys ever happen to check out their specials on TV, just seeing how we fit into the bigger picture of the universe and things like that, truly inspirational, and understand the importance of the moment that we're living in today. So I dropped from a bunch of different sources, some factual, some more metaphysical, I guess we'll call it. But inspiration is abounding, so it's important that you find what resonates well for you.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to that perspective that Sheeta talked about and keeping it all grounded in some way. Mary, I'm going to let you take us home.
Okay, thank you. During COVID, I have been inspired by the incredible people who have dedicated their lives to finding solutions and saving lives, from the bench scientists to the bedside caregivers to the community-based organizations that have been going out and spreading the word that the vaccine is available and people should get vaccinated. So that's one response, and I really have held inspiration that people are working hard to end this pandemic. We still have a ways to go, but they're bright spots in my life. And then the other is the people who have really been challenging the status quo on a global scale. And a person who has been an inspiration for many years to me is Malala, the Pakistani activist who was the youngest Nobel laureate until recently. And she's fought for the rights for women's education and human rights. And when I look at where we are in our global political, geopolitical, economic situation right now, we need more people who stand up and speak truth to power and fight for those who may not be getting their human rights addressed. So Malala continues to be inspirational.
Well, we are at the conclusion of our time, unfortunately, and I want to thank you all. You have shown that there are heroes walking amongst us, and you're among them. You guys got me all choked up. So I want to say thank you so much to you all.
Thank you, Taryn, for your leadership.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, it is my
Thank you.
pleasure to convene all of you together. It's my joy. So
Thank you.
I
Bye,
want to say
everyone.
thank you
Thank
to
you
this
so much.
amazing roundtable. And I want to say a big thank to our sponsors, Synovian Pharmaceuticals, Calcium, Incedo, Ogilvy Health, Parexel, Syneos Health, Umotive, Health Union, Medtrix Healthcare, Alnylam Pharmaceuticals, eMeds, Love Lane, and North Highland. We have a 30-minute break before our Sparks of Innovation panel that starts at 2 o'clock. I encourage you to go view the PharmaVOICE 100 videos, chat with other attendees, visit an exhibitor, grab a cup of coffee or a snack, and we'll be back at 2 o'clock. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Be well.